Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast is a Christ-centered podcast. Established in 2019 and hosted weekly by Pastor Chris Busher. Addressing a host of topics such as the Great Commission, Christian discipleship, and often featuring interviews with special guests who are experts in their field. The views and events expressed on this podcast and all related materials belong solely to their author and not necessarily to the author's employer, organization, committee, or other group or individual. While all attempts are made to present accurate information, some information may become outdated over time. Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast makes every attempt to timely update any and all such information. Without further delay, here's another powerful episode of Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast. Once again, my name is Dallas here. Today we have another amazing guest joining us, Joel Connor. Joel, such a pleasure to have you here today. How are you?
I'm doing well, except I knocked over my camera. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here today. And you have an amazing story, you and your wife, as well as Wise Deck, the conversation starter that is for families, fathers and sons, and other options as well. And so I'm excited to talk about this specifically. But before we do, I just want to give you the opportunity to share your faith or how you became a Christian and how that changed your life for our audience today.
Okay. I don't know how deep we want to go into this, but basically, I grew up in the church, Methodist church, and kind of just, good family, lots of love from my parents. And we kind of did the church thing. So then I got a scholarship to play basketball. And so I moved to a different state, and I kind of was on my own and to discover, and figure out what I believed and how I was going to live and these sort of things. And so I started going down a not so great path there in my freshman year in college, and just was struggling. And then I was befriended by some other college students and that were involved in a ministry there called Campus Outreach. And they really just loved on me. And I kind of felt like, I believed that I was a Christian, but these guys, they were like next level. I was like, these guys are really serious about this stuff. And so it challenged me. But through that, just the seeds that they planted, I found myself kind of struggling with, where am I? Do I really understand and believe this? And so I found myself about halfway through my freshman year. I was in my dorm room, and I picked up this tract that somebody had given me, and it was called Back to God. Anyway, this tract kind of laid out three different guys that had passed away, and they were seeing whether or not they were going to, get in to be with God and go to heaven. And their responses, the first guy, I knew he wasn't getting in. He wasn't a church guy. He wasn't a terrible guy. He said, I'm pretty good. You should let me in. I knew he probably wasn't going to get in. But the second guy had this, he said, I went to church. I did Sunday school. I believe in Jesus. I did all these things also that are helping me, get in. So he kind of basically, he had belief, but he was really putting his trust in kind of his good works and things like that. And I was like, yeah, he's getting in. And then he doesn't get in. And so I was like, what is this third guy gonna say? I never knew
that rough one there that we read.
So the third guy gets up there and he's like, I don't deserve to get in. Nothing I could do could earn my way in, but I put my trust in Jesus. And I was like, whoa. So that, for me, that's kind of like when the lights came on, and that's when my heart really changed and my desires changed. And then I got involved in campus ministry, did that, did some missions in Thailand with
no way.
Campus Outreach.
Me too. Me too. In Thailand. Where did you go in Thailand?
Mostly in Bangkok. We were doing college outreach, but then we went up into northern Thailand. We went to Chiang Mai. Actually, I went twice.
Yeah, that's where I stayed too.
I went back as one of the leaders on our second trip. Spent about 4 months there. That was a real challenge to my to my faith to be surrounded by
Mhm.
so many people that just had a completely different belief system. But I had some really neat things happen over there. And then, and then I got my degree in elementary education after college and moved to Charleston. And that's where I met my wife at Calvary Chapel in downtown Charleston. And then
Your life
shortly
changed
after
forever.
getting married, what's that?
And your life changed forever.
Yeah. I was playing music and, doing a lot of surfing and involved with my church and stuff like that. And then I met Stephanie, and then my music career died at that point.
Mhm.
But anyway, we ended up moving to Mexico and lived there for 3 years and did missions there. We were we were kind of like the school for abused and abandoned kids at a ranch down in Sonora, down in the desert in the country. And we actually have gone back a few times. We went back last year at about this time to reconnect. We adopted our oldest son from there. He just kind of landed with us, and we decided to adopt him. This is, I became a believer back in '92. So it's been a few years I've been on this journey, and there have been, times when I've questioned, my faith and struggle with, tough questions. But whenever I kind of walk up and I look at the path of faith versus like the path of unbelief, it's always really clear when I look down the path and all of the things that all the worldview and I guess all of the ramifications and the the truth that's been reinforced over and over and over again. I know over time you tend to forget all the things that he's done, but so I'm father of 4, and I have a 9-year-old son, and that's kind of where we ended up coming to this wise deck concept that came to fruition this year.
Yeah. I want to go back to your testimony just for a moment, because I feel like there's a lot of people listening today who I want you to give advice for people who were just like you in college and they kind of believed, but they weren't really sure, kind of like you. What would be your advice for those people listening today?
Yeah. Those college years are very, very shaping of how your life is going to go. And it's easy, it's easy to be swayed and influenced by other people. And there are bright lights around you. There are people of faith that will lead you into truth and life. And there are very dark paths that you can go down. And it's a different world, than 30 years ago when I was in that place. But the same dynamics are in place. I think it's probably easier now for young people to stay a little bit more disconnected and live in kind of more of a virtual realm of digital, distraction. But I would encourage young folks to don't settle for. I see it's easy to be to be almost self-distracted and not to deal with some of these deeper questions like, why do I exist? How did we get here? Existence. There's no accidental existence. We exist, and you need to look at the options there for answering those questions.
Yeah.
And anyway.
Thank you. Yeah, because college is such a confusing time. You leave the house, your structure is gone. You have to build your own structure, and if you don't have yourself firm in the faith, you could really go off the path, as you were saying, right? This can really happen. There are some dark places out there. And I want to also just give one more thing for that. I remember that when I was going to university, I was struggling with a drug addiction, and it only got worse during college. But there were always those guys. There is the light, just like you were saying. There were those guys saying, come to the Bible study. I'm like, I'm going to go do drugs later. And they're like, come to the Bible study anyway. And that's what kept me going through, is just those little moments of, yes, God still loves me. He still wants me, and I need to change my life. And of course, I'm pretty stubborn. It took a little while, but I'm so grateful for those guys who did say, hey, come to Bible study with me. Those guys who were the light. And so I'm so grateful for those types of people. And if you are one of those people listening today, continue to be the light. Continue to invite your brothers and sisters to go to those Bible studies, even if it's difficult or they're doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. You could be the light that brings them back to Christ. So just like the card said, saved by the track, right? Back to God.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. God's always pursuing us, and He's providing. Even after you're a believer, He's opening up doors and opportunities for you to love people and to make an impact. But a lot of times we just miss it, and we're not very in tune with what's really going on around us.
And back to Wise Deck. So what is Wise Deck, just for our audience to know, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into that.
Okay, so one of my adopted sons from China, I really wanted to do something with him, especially in our bedtime time where we're together and we're saying goodnight and hugs and kisses. And I wanted something more intentional. And, as a parent, busy, and sometimes you're tired. And so I started looking for resources, and I ordered a couple of books, and I had pretty high expectations. I got this book off of Amazon. It was pretty highly rated. And so we'd get out the book and we'd try to go through a chapter. And I found that like every third sentence, I would have to stop and try to explain what it was saying. It wasn't written for kids so that they could follow it. And basically it just was not very usable. And so I was kind of frustrated in that. My degree was in early or elementary ed. So I know how to communicate with kids. And the Bible can be a little bit, hard to understand I think he was 8 when we started, and he's a very bright kid. He and I play chess, and I have to really stay on my toes these days. He's getting pretty good. He's bright. So it's not like, he could comprehend what he should be able to at his age and even beyond. So there were some frustrations with that. So I started thinking, well, I've heard of conversation cards for families at the dinner table. There's card games for drinking, and there's there's this format that's out there. So I thought maybe I'll put together some cards and see how it goes with them. So I started with it, writing down some note cards and just seeing how it would go. But it was better because these were conversations I wanted to have with him. It was better than the book format. But then after you go through the card, you're like, well, let's find a scripture that would kind of correlate with that. And then I'm going like, okay, I got to get on my phone here and Google that term or get out my concordance. And then the flow wasn't very good. So I was thinking, it'd be really nice if we had the prompt and then the verse. But then a few weeks in, I had a thought. I really feel like the Lord gave me this because I'm really not that smart. But it was like, what if there was a two-way prompt? There was a two-way conversational prompts. One that the dad reads to the son, one that the son reads to the dad. And I was like, whoa, I need to try that. So I started doing that, and that totally changed the dynamics of that time. And I think that's what is special about the Wise Deck concept. So each card has father to son and a scripture, son to father, and then there's like a wise quote. So something from a Christian author or thinker or, someone from history that has spoken truth about this subject on the card. So you have all of that on one card. And so when we started doing that way, it completely changed the dynamics of it. So I started a Google Sheet and filling out the Google Sheet. And then I was like, hey, I think this is worth sharing. So then I decided to kind of develop it and get it printed and share it with the world. And then, so this is what it looks like. It comes in a slide off top box, and then it's got this is the instructions, but it's got it's 51 sessions where you have double-sided cards. So I had it produced, and then my son and I went through it all this year. And what I found out as we were going through it was it really impacted me, I think, almost as much as it did him, because when the kid gets a prompt, it gives them a license to ask questions that they probably wanted to ask at some point, were probably afraid to ask, and they don't. And then you ask them questions. You're asking them questions about feedback on my parenting. They do not hold back. They will hit you with the truth. And so it was pretty powerful. We actually I have some friends, and they're very photogenic young family. They live a couple of streets down, but I wanted them to, do some testing with it and see if they liked it. And then they agreed to do some marketing pictures. So I said, I just want you to read a couple of these with your son, and so we can take some pictures. So he pulls it out. He's like on card number 2, and I'm trying to get a decent picture, and I'm looking over at the dad, and he's crying.
Man.
Yeah, I was like, hey, we're just trying to get some pictures. The son just unleashed on him some truth from the card, and I was like, wow, this is neat. That I think this is going to impact the fathers and sons that take advantage of it. I mean, you could come up with all this on your own, but it's just nice that you can. You're tired. You're a tired dad. At the end of the day, you see this thing sitting over there on the shelf, or what happens is your son will see it over there on the shelf, and he'll remind you, say, Dad, are we going to do the deck? That's exactly what happened with us. My son Gideon, he would remind me to do it. And we went through, all 51 sessions. And then for me, the icing on the cake was we finished session 51. We were up in the mountains in North Carolina on vacation. And so he's adopted. And the next morning, he declares to everyone at our breakfast, my parents were there as well, that he wanted to change his name to Joel Jr.
Wow.
I was like,
that's cool.
That's something I couldn't have ever expected. I know there more went into it than just going through the deck, but it definitely blessed our relationship. I wish we had. Actually, I would like to produce some more so we could continue having some more of those conversations.
Yeah.
So,
and I have so many questions about this. Like, what are some of those questions that got you teared up or make you really like, oh man, like what were some of those prompts?
You're listening to the Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast. We'll be right back after this quick word from our sponsors.
Embark on a riveting journey with Megaquake 2024, a chilling fusion of seismic science, biblical prophecies, and historical threads. Brace yourself for the imminent Megaquake, decoding the science and aligning with historical events. Seize your copy on Amazon now. Prepare for the unknown. Experience the magic of A Sunny Christmas with Joseph Simmons Jr.'s heartwarming holiday anthem. This multilingual masterpiece celebrating love and joy is available in English, French, Mandarin, Hindi, Portuguese, Spanish, Japanese, and many more. Don't miss out on the global celebration. Listen to the full song by searching Thanking of a Sunny Christmas on YouTube today.
All right, this is card number 1. He gets to ask this question. Or actually, I'm reading this to him. I say, what is one thing you would like me to do differently as your dad?
Right
And
out the
so,
gate.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And then there's a Proverbs 8:33. Hear instruction and be wise. So the father reads that, he gets some instruction on his parenting, and he yeah, like I said, he didn't hold back. He's like, Dad, you know, I don't like it when you get angry. And I was like, I don't like it when I get angry either, but I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's that two-way aspect that I think makes it unique and
I love it. It's
impactful.
not just like, how did you feel during the week? It's like a deep question. Like
Mhm.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and
My son, he's
it
only 1.5. So he's 1 year and 7 months. So I feel he's a little
yeah.
early to start the conversation cards. But this is exciting. This is exciting about being a dad and being able to have those real conversations that a lot of people don't get to have with their father, right? And
Mhm.
especially you adopting, those boys would have never had this opportunity if you didn't come into their lives and, give them this fatherly figure. And so, yeah, it's so important.
Yeah, and there are some ideas I want to explore with this two-way format, because, like, for example, husbands and wives,
Mhm.
and then I have 2 daughters. I want to do father and daughter, but in my thoughts towards husbands and wives, we think differently a lot of times. We have different ways of receiving love and communicating. So having that prompt hit both of them in the way that they need to be approached, I guess. Although I know the potential for a deck like that could
Start some
initiate
fires.
some friction.
That's funny. Yeah,
um,
when you get that marriage when created, call me, Joel. I'm excited. I'm excited about that. That's cool. This is really, really neat stuff. And I want to talk a little bit more about the adoption process. And so we're not focusing on that today, but if you could just share a little bit about your heart behind that and maybe what you could tell, what you want. I know that there are all these questions that people normally ask, but what would you want other parents to know today who have not adopted but are curious
okay.
about these things?
Okay. Well, our first adoption was not really planned. Like, we weren't seeking. We were just handed a baby who was 6 months old and barely alive. And we just, decided, my wife almost, within a few days said, we're going to adopt him. And then took me about a month before I fully was on board with it. And the missionary, that the guy that was running the mission, he said, don't even try to adopt. You won't be able to do it. I mean, do you ever hear Mexican adoptions? It's like, it's unheard of. So nobody knew what to do. And we just worked at it. It was pretty miraculous how it all came together. The judge didn't know what to do. The lawyers didn't know what to do. The lawyers took a bunch of money and gave us papers that didn't mean anything.
Mhm.
And then there was a big change in adoptions. It's back in 2008, but right after we finished our adoption shut down completely. There was an office in Tijuana, and it just shut down completely. I don't know what it is now, but basically it was pretty miraculous. It took us about just over a year to do that first adoption. And then my son he's 17 now. He was severely abused and neglected as a baby, and we got him at 6 months. He was about 9 pounds, and he went through hell on earth, as terrible as you can imagine it. He has scars from cigarettes being put out on his face and chest, and sad stuff. And so he's got some special needs. He's nonverbal. He's the part of his brain that is fight or flight is way overdeveloped. So he has some irrational fears and things that he has to deal with. Most of the time, he's the happiest kid on earth, though. He's 17. He still comes and gets in bed with us almost every morning, and he's a sweet kid. So the other 2 adoptions that we did were from China, and it's a completely different thing. That whole process was a very well-oiled machine, and there was a lot of steps and it was a lot of work, but we just went through the process. We adopted a boy and a girl when they were just before they turned 2. We got them. They were supposed to have special needs, and neither one of them does. They're both healthy, happy, and easy to. They're just a joy. So, and then in between those 2, we had our biological daughter, who was born deaf. So our first 2 kids were pretty intense special needs. One that can't speak, and one who's deaf. Deaf children can be pretty wild, and she has an implant now. But so those were some pretty hard years for my wife and I, raising those 2. And then when we got our other 2, who were not special needs, we didn't realize how much harder it was parenting kids with special needs. And then the other thing that's so prevalent is the divorce rates for families that have one special need child are extremely high, and if you have 2, it's really even higher. And so my wife and I, and then she had some health issues during that time. At one time, I was spoon feeding 2 of my kids and my wife.
Wow.
And it was intense, but because we committed, we made that commitment to stick together, to love each other, to trust God to give us the strength. We feel like we've been through a war together, and we have
and that's where the Wise Deck for Couples is born, right there.
Well, my wife wants me to do something for special needs kids so that they can, like my son, he does sign language, but anyway, we'll see how it develops. One thing that's interesting, kind of go full circle here. I mentioned a book earlier. I'm not going to say what book it is, but it's that book that I was frustrated with that wasn't really working for us. So now so the Wise Deck's on Amazon, and if you type in conversation cards for fathers and sons, the deck is number 1, and then that book is right after it. So it's kind of like, but the interesting thing is, although it's what comes up on Amazon, not a lot of fathers are taking advantage of it, and not a lot of people are searching for it. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to promote it and promote that father and son bond. However you can achieve it is such an important thing in our world, and such an important investment for fathers that you don't want to miss those years. Kids, once they transition into their teen years, whatever groundwork you've laid up until that point is going to really influence your relationship through those teen years, and then moving forward. So I think it's I was kind of surprised that not more people have gotten the decks and started using them.
Yeah.
Even though,
and if I can ask you, what
yeah,
what is the price of this as well on Amazon and on
it's
your site?
about $25. Yep.
Excellent.
And actually, I had some. So I ordered, a bunch of them, and one of the things that I found is, I'd gladly give them all away, but it seems like all the ones that I gave away, that I talked to the folks that I've given them to, they just are not using them. But the ones who buy them, just because they saw the value of it
Mm-hmm.
and were willing to just pay, the price of going out to eat,
Yeah.
or less.
$25
There's
to change a relationship with your child, worth it.
Yeah, yeah,
$25.
yeah. So that's kind of, so I haven't done a lot of promoting, like outside of just putting it out there. Um, but yeah, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to, talk with you about it, and I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm grateful to have you on. It just shows your heart behind this as well. And that's why I asked you about your family a little bit as well, just for our audience to see your heart behind why you made the cards and how it's helped you and your family. And so I really appreciate your time here today. Anything else you want us to know from your time here today?
Yeah, I think I've covered just about everything in regards to the deck. Although I am excited about, if it starts to get a little more traction, like I'm it takes quite a bit of resources to get something like this produced. If the more it starts to take off, I would love to take it in more directions. Like I said, with father and daughter for sure, husbands and wives, and whatever other formats. I did want to say another thing that I've been doing with my son that's been pretty impactful is there's a group out there called Trail Life that I highly recommend. Fathers and sons, if you have that in your area, it is a nationwide. It's kind of like the Boy Scouts, but it's real Bible based. It's a Christian organization, and one of the things that they do is, it's not something you go and drop your son off to. You go and you stay and you participate. Wow. And so you got all these dads that are there. We just went on a camping trip this past Friday, and my son, he just loves it. And so you pray together, and there's different levels that you can get involved, but as you go through, it has a handbook, it has little badges that they can earn, and my son's really into it, so it's been good for us. We do a lot of outdoors stuff, which is good to get out and kind of get off of media and work on that relationship.
Yeah. And I do want to say, I'm looking at your site right now. You do have the price of the $25, but you also have a $5 email edition. So I want to point that out for our audience as well, that if you really can't find the $25, there's the $5 option email version. Of course, the cards are beautiful. You need to get the full set, have it in your hands and touch it, have your son read it and touch it as well. But the email edition, it's something to also look forward to if you don't have the capacity for the $25, right? So Joel, thank you so much.
Yeah, and
creating that option as
well. One other thing too, like if a church wanted to order a bunch of them for like their men in the church to bless them or whatever, we've had some churches that have ordered. Then I definitely there's a discounted bulk option on the website too. So you get them. I forget what the discount is, but it's pretty significant discount if you order in bulk.
Perfect.
So
thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I want to tell our audience, your website is wisedeck.co, so they can check that out. Also, it's in the description below. They can find that link. Anything else, Joel?
Yeah. If anybody has any questions or maybe ideas or any feedback, I'm very accessible. You can contact me through the website, and I'd love to, talk to whoever's interested in learning more about it, or want to help me promote it. I'd be grateful, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to talk with you.
Yeah.
And
thank you, Joel. Thank you so much.
Enjoy Brazil.
Yes, I am. We'll talk a little bit more after we close out here. But if you can end our time together with a prayer, I would really appreciate that, Joel.
Father, I pray for anybody who's watching or listening to this. Just pray that in some way they were encouraged or challenged to forge a deeper bond with their children, to invest in that, to not be distracted by all the distractions of this digital age. I just pray blessing on all of those families, fathers and sons, and I bless this podcast. I pray that it would impact and encourage people all over the world. And I just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
You've just listened to the Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast with your host, Pastor Chris Busher. Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast was recorded live in studio with final editing made before uploading. Subscribe today to Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast on iTunes or Google Play. For more fantastic daily content, visit Pastor Chris Busher online via Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Don't miss the next episode on Faith and Family Fellowship Podcast.